especially in panels for ones involving such open.
Hi, everybody. All right, here we go. So, hey, welcome to the first annual Inno on Fire celebration. I'm Will Flanagan, Director of Product and Strategy at American Inno. Please, if you're celebrating, having a good time, don't forget to tweet us at ntxinno.com so we can take this virtual conversation onto another virtual platform. This event, as you guys know, was originally scheduled to be in person, but we are more than fortunate to have an audience that is really comfortable with the pivot, so we appreciate you all joining us virtually. Our first class of fire honorees range in size, industry, age, and stage. They're all having their moments in different ways. They've seen new funding and rising revenue, as well as product launches, acquisitions, and exits, all during a particularly difficult period. COVID-19 challenged these ventures, threatened their futures, and made growth that much harder. But for some, the pandemic created opportunity. For others, it issued a major test that these players have all passed. We hope that you enjoy Inno on Fire as an opportunity to look back at what these amazing people, organizations, and companies have accomplished over the last year, and the chance to look forward to the projects and endeavors that they are working on for the future. Consider Inno on Fire a definitive look at everybody who's heating up the ecosystem this year. Before we dive into the honoree video, for anyone unfamiliar with us and what we do, NTX Inno is part of a growing network of sites. We're currently in 14 markets, and we're committed to covering, connecting, and catalyzing local technology, startups, and innovation. NTX Inno has been covering the North Texas ecosystem since August 2019, and we do that through daily stories, a daily newsletter, quarterly events, and more. Actually, we're almost coming up. We're about a week or two away from our one-year-old birthday, so it's been an amazing year in the NTX market. It's been, of the 14, one of our best launches to date. We've hit milestones we haven't in any of our markets in that first year. So it's a big testament to you, the community, and really supporting the storytelling that we're able to do in market. So please check us out at ntxinno.com to see what we're all about and sign up for The Beat, our daily newsletter. The Beat is the best way to stay plugged into everything that's impacting the local innovation economy. In it, you'll get the local tech and startup news you need, analysis you won't find anywhere else, info on upcoming events, and cool job openings, and much, much more, all in a fun, conversational manner. Before we kick it to Kevin and the Inno on Fire video, I wanted to thank our sponsors for whom this event would not be possible. They have all stuck with us through these difficult times and helped us pivot to this virtual platform. Our founding partners, Accenture, BDO, UT Dallas, and Thomson Reuters, they've been with us since our launch. They've supported us every day, and they support this ecosystem. They've been great partners to us. Please support them the way they support us. Also, thank you so much to our supporting fire sponsor, Amica, who's been working with us on an Inno on Fire across the network. Please check them out. They're here to support you. Now, I'd like to introduce Kevin Cummings, staff reporter for NTX Inno. He's been in your inboxes for the past year with everything you need to know to stay connected to this growing great ecosystem. He's done an amazing job building NTX Inno, and really excited to kick it over to him. Kevin?
Thanks, Will, and thank you to all who are joining us today. Here in a few minutes, we're going to showcase the honorees in our inaugural and soon-to-be annual On Fire video and reveal the Blazer winners in each category. Before we do that, I want to give you a little more info on what Inno on Fire is and why you're all here today. In the past year, like Will said, we officially launched in September. We've been working to showcase the people, companies, and trends that are helping to transform the North Texas ecosystem into a burgeoning innovation and startup hub. Today, we're pleased to announce and introduce our inaugural Inno on Fire Awards, a celebration of the early stage businesses, enterprises, and innovators who are doing special work to set the ecosystem, well, ablaze. I had to throw that pun in there. A few weeks ago, we asked our audience to submit nominations, and from that list of nominations, we pulled together the Inno on Fire honorees that we have here. This afternoon, we gather online to showcase the Inno on Fire companies and individuals, and also we're going to unveil the Blazer winners in each category. So, what's an Inno Blazer winner, you ask? An Inno Blazer is a special designation given to the top companies and people who are trailblazing new paths in their industry, aka the hottest in their category. The Inno Blazer winners were selected by an esteemed panel of local judges and truly stand out in the innovation community. This year, our judges were Dresden Goldberg, Director of Programs and Operation at UT Dallas's Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Brian Chambers, VP of Accelerator and Investment at Capital Factory, Benjamin Van, founder and CEO at Impact Ventures, Nancy Hoang, Assistant Director at SMU's Caruth Institute for Entrepreneurship, Hubert Zayashek, co-founder and partner at Health Wildcatters, Jacques Room III, VP of Corporate Strategy, also at Capital Factory, Cindy Revel, Principal at Perot Jane, and Ollie Chandok, Market President and Publisher at our sister outlet, the Dallas Business Journal. So, without further ado, this is the moment we've all been waiting for, the premiere of our 2020 NTX Inno on Fire winner video. We invite you to celebrate and tweet the pics at us during the video, and we're going to showcase the Inno on Fire honorees, and then at the end of each category, introduce the Inno Blazer winner. Again, the Blazers were selected by a panel of judges from the community as the hottest and most impactful in their company. So let's get to it, raise a drink, get ready, and roll the video.
Hi, I'm Jill Swoboda, Assurance Partner from BDO in North Texas. We are proud to support the local innovation community, and we're excited to introduce you to the Inno on Fire winners in the 2020 Social Impact category. BDO delivers world-class resources and exceptional service to each of our clients and beyond. We owe the success of our business in large part to our communities and to our environment. BDO endeavors every day to help people thrive, whether they're down the street or across the world. Here are the honorees in the Inno on Fire Social Impact category.
Hi, I'm Jorge Corral, the Office Managing Director of Accenture's 2,300 people here in North Texas, committed to improving the way we work and live. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to the North Texas Inno on Fire honorees in the 2020 Consumer Products Goods category. We all know that with COVID-19, everything has changed, and the consumer goods industry has been profoundly impacted. However, it's companies like these being recognized today that have found opportunity to attract and engage with consumers in innovative new ways. They have changed themselves for the better and refocused on the possibilities that the future holds. Congratulations on your success.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Madison, Director of Community Relations from the Thomson Reuters team in North Texas. We are proud to introduce you to the Inno on Fire winners in the 2020 healthcare category. We're focused on shaping tomorrow together, helping you to adapt to new ways of working with confidence. At Thomson Reuters, we have the intelligence, technology, and human expertise you need to find trusted answers. Here are the honorees in the Inno on Fire healthcare category.
Hi, I'm Dresden Goldberg from the University of Texas at Dallas, where I serve as the Director of Programs and Operations for the Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Through our 30,000 member student body and hundreds of outstanding research faculty, we aim to turn innovation into economic impact every day for North Texas. So I am delighted to introduce you to the Inno on Fire winners in the 2020 EdTech category. As an education and Tier 1 research powerhouse, UT Dallas offers more than 140 academic degrees from top-ranked programs in the nation in business, engineering, science, and the arts across our 8 schools. And now, here are the honorees in the Inno on Fire EdTech category.
Welcome back, everyone. I kind of feel like I want to like cheer or do the dance that robot from RoboKind was doing. So it's a little weird since we're all kind of separated. But big congrats to all the Blazer winners, which again are Canaries, UT Dallas Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Goodie Box, Survivor, Rosie, Mission Control, RoboKind, ShearShare, StackPath, and Zirtue. So again, congrats everyone. Cheers. Now, I'd like to welcome a few of the Blazer winners to talk to us about how they've been making waves in the scene. Today, we've got Dennis Cail, co-founder of Zirtue, Courtney and Ty Caldwell, who are the co-founders of ShearShare, Brian Hoang, who is the CEO of SurviVR, and Richard Margolin, who is the CTO and co-founder of RoboKind. I'm going to let them introduce themselves a little bit more and a little bit about their companies. But again, I want to say congrats to all the Blazer winners, all the honorees, and all the startups, innovators, and organizations working in the ecosystem. And again, before we start, if you do have questions, please drop those in the question box, and we will try to get to as many of those as we can here at the end. So I'm going to let the co-founders all introduce themselves. Dennis, you're the first one on my screen, so why don't you take it away here?
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. Hey guys, Dennis Cail here, CEO, co-founder at Zirtue. I came up with this idea about 10 years ago because my sister and other family members kept borrowing money from me, and I had very limited success in getting that money back. So the thought process really behind Zirtue is let's take the awkwardness out of that process, help make people more accountable, give them a financial lifeline if and when they need it, and give them the option to pay their creditors directly through the Zirtue app. So happy to be with you all here today, and thank you for having us.
All right, I guess I'll go next. I'm Richard Margolin. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of RoboKind. We use robots like this guy behind me to teach social, emotional, and behavioral skills to kids with autism in public school settings. We've developed, besides the robot, a large evidence-based curriculum that is delivered by the robot and basically means that you get a world-class autism expert in your classroom immediately with minimal training, and it doesn't really matter how much staff turnover there is in your schools, and unfortunately there's a lot of staff turnover and things like that. You're able to have a lot of consistency of program, and it engages kids in ways that people can't, especially kids on the autism spectrum, and it does things that people can't because none of us are good at, you know, holding up flashcards as we're speaking very rigid scripts. And, you know, as caring as most of us want to be and as caring as all teachers are, none of us are that great at, you know, waiting 90 seconds or 3 minutes for a kid to respond to a question. And sometimes that's what you're working with. And then last year, we also introduced a computer science curriculum to teach elementary school kids to code. Again, even if they don't have staff in their school who can really teach coding.
Awesome. Sorry, I was figuring out my mute button there. Courtney and Tyler, you guys want to take it away?
Sure. Hey guys, and congratulations everyone. Still so strange to be doing all this stuff virtually, but we're the Caldwells guys, Courtney and Dr. Ty. We're the co-founders of ShearShare. We're the first app that allows on-demand salon and barbershop space rental. So salon and barbershop owners, we connect them with independent stylists to fill their empty salon space by the day. We're affectionately referred to in the industry as Hair B&B. So that's an easy way to think of us, but super happy to be here representing North Texas.
Awesome. Yeah, and Brian, last but not least.
Hey everyone, my name is Brian. I'm the CEO of SurviVR, and we've built a virtual reality training platform for law enforcement. So you can imagine that you are a police officer, you put on a virtual reality headset, and we will transport you to a whole different environment of different high pressure law enforcement scenarios. This can be everything from domestic violence situations to traffic stops to active shooters in the school. And the intent here is to improve your decision-making skills and your communication empathy skills so that when you're on the streets, you're more confident, you make fewer mistakes, and everybody can go home at night. And so today we're working with municipal, state,
federal and military law enforcement, customers such as Caldwell Police Department, Collin County Sheriff's Office, City of Madison, Wisconsin, Robins Air Force Base, and soon to come, the Department of Homeland Security.
Awesome. Well, I mean, as you guys can see, we've got a pretty interesting lineup of founders here. So we got a lot to talk about, but I kind of wanted to start with ShearShare here. If I'm not mistaken, you guys raised a seed round kind of right at the end of December of 2019, correct?
Close. We are closing our seed round as we speak.
Well, we'll keep it on either way. I mean, obviously we cannot have this without talking about the pandemic, but if we can remember a time before all of that, what did 2019 or like what did 2020 look like for you guys? What were some of the plans you had for 2020 kind of as it started before things kind of got crazy?
Man, we were on a great trajectory. We had North Star line to do 1 million ARR, and we were just excited. And lo and behold, who would have thought that the pandemic would have hit? Of course, it affected the beauty industry. Of course, it affected the whole world. We are used to certain things like this happening, but the pandemic just pretty much shut things down. So we were used to, the 2007, 2008, crisis, and so the recession. So we were used to things like that happening. But when everything shut down, we were now at zero. So what do? What you have to do now is just pivot. Think about how you can help your industry, stay positive, and think about your health and your safety. So those were the things that we thought about, but we really wanted to now start connecting and communicating with those people that were really having a hard time dealing with this pandemic. So mentally, emotionally, giving them the opportunity to see what can we do to help. So talking about the PPP and along EIDL, giving them education on how they can grow their business once things get back to normal, a sense of a new normalcy. And those were the things that we were able to do at the time.
Yeah, and I mean, Dennis, you guys recently raised a seed round, correct?
That's correct, yes.
So what was the year starting to look like for you guys?
The year was looking good, okay? I think we had a plan and a clear path to hit our milestones, to hit our metrics, and we were focused on that. Obviously, when the whole COVID thing happened back in March, April, that threw everyone off. I mean, we didn't have a playbook for that. I don't think anyone did. Whether it's you were talking about your business or you're talking about your personal life, no one had a playbook for that. So we obviously had to figure it out and come up with a plan, a plan that didn't seem like we were reacting, but more so like we were getting in front of an issue that was already here. And so, it was all hands on deck. Let's figure out, some of the pains and gains in terms of pain points that our users are feeling, and what can we do to offset some of that? Because we did see a spike in user growth and loan activity, the corporate partners signing up, between March, April, and May, and we're still seeing some of that. So we're just trying to be responsive in that, and we were fortunate enough to be able to close out our $1.5 million seed round last month. So for us, we've just been in a fortunate, blessed situation, and we're just trying to be good stewards of those funds. I mean, we have an awesome team. I mean, we couldn't do any of what we do without the Zirtue team, and so we're just trying to focus on adding as much value and creating an awesome user experience, because we start with the user experience. Everything else is just details after that. So for us, it was, how can we mitigate some of those pain points, right? And so, we started offering users the ability, because initially you had to make a loan request and make those payments monthly. We introduced a deferred payment option, so you can set your own payback date. So some folks were just not in a position after COVID to make monthly payments, so they can set a payback date 6 months, 9 months, a year or so out. And that's the financial relief and things that we sort of tried to do just to make things easier for our users. So.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of going along this line of questioning, Richard, RoboKind, I think, is probably the most funded company we have on this panel. So I'm kind of interested for RoboKind, again, the same question, like what did kind of 2020 look for you guys, but how is that kind of, experience and like, financial backing helped you guys during this whole crisis?
Yeah, I mean, 2020 was looking really good in terms of before COVID started. And I mean, that said, we had not just our best like first quarter ever, but the largest first quarter like growth ever compared to any previous year. You know, we're K-12, so we kind of operate on like just a school cycle. So like first half of the year is generally pretty slow anyway. And I mean, but things were looking good and moving really fast, and a lot of things we'd worked on, both in terms of technology and in terms of business and sales, were all kind of coming together. And then COVID hit, and you know, suddenly all of our customers had no idea what they were doing, because no one was really prepared for at-home learning and remote learning and things like that. And we had in development really set to release like this school year, for different reasons, an avatar version of our computer science course. And so we just really accelerated development on that. And for basically the last 3 months of the year, we're just giving it away for free. Excuse me, so that schools who were, you know, really struggling to figure out how to serve their kids were able to just get on board and, you know, have something to work with. And we spent the entire summer working on an avatar version, an iPad only version of our autism program. And it's a little more complex when you're serving the autism population, because you still need teachers involved and things like that. So we have to think about remote facilitation and all these other things, and it's not just a standalone learn at home. And you know, we were fortunate. We got some PPP money and some EIDL money, which really helped fill in the gaps in what's kind of the slow time of the year for us anyway. But you know, we have a great private equity partner as our primary backer, and they've been willing to kind of extend us a line of credit to fill in the gaps where necessary. We're getting into what's normally the good time of year in education, but schools still don't really know what they're doing, and so everything seems to be delayed. You know, hopefully it'll come back and it'll be there. Kids are learning. It's a question of where they are and how do we make sure that we're helping our clients and the kids ultimately that we serve continue to learn and continue to be, you know, to benefit from the robots and the virtual robots and the curriculum we've created.
Yeah, and I definitely want to come back to that. But before we do, Brian, you guys SurviVR's been through a number of accelerators. So what was 2020 looking like? What have you taken from what you guys have learned and applied that to navigating through this crisis?
Yeah, we've been through a lot of different programs. I'd say when we first started, it was at UT Dallas, the Blackstone Launchpad Venture Development Center. Eventually went to Mass Challenge Austin or Texas, and then Techstars Austin was the latest one earlier this year. I think we've picked up a variety of different experiences along the way. This is over like the past, I would say, 4 years altogether. We weren't always SurviVR. We've done other stuff in the past. But I would say it's transformed my personal ability and our leadership's ability to learn how to best lead a company. And for Techstars specifically and everything else as well, it teaches you a variety of different topics, everything from sales processes to marketing tactics to fundraising to product and everything, team management as well, HR, legal, finance. So broadly speaking, overall, I think I've come out of these programs 1,000 times more confident in myself as a leader. I'm 23, so it's like it's not like I entered this with a previous track record or anything like that. But going into COVID, it's like, you know, as we've heard being mentioned already on this panel, there's a lot of uncertainty that faces us. A lot of startups have to question, you know, what is happening to our burn rate now because of, you know, all of our sales projections are being thrown off the rails, and we're not sure what the runway is going to be as a result. Do we have to lay off employees, which is personally my worst fear as a leader. I never want to lay off a team that's placed their their trust and dedication in us. So there's a lot of navigating around there. And I think with all these programs over the years, we've gained a lot of different mentors and advisors that we can trust. We, of course, are going to get different feedback, but you know, at some point, you're going to get over the new fundraising difficulties because of COVID. You're going to get over any other random obstacles, like all sales travel suddenly comes to a halt, and that all of our major conferences get canceled. So just navigating different ways. And I think, if anything, this COVID, the pandemic, and the different programs we've gone into, it just forced us to be a lot more creative about how we go about running our business. It's not necessarily a dead end unless, you know, you're kind of willing it to be.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of one of the reasons, besides y'all all being Blazer winners, that we wanted to get you all together is because your technology is kind of perfectly placed right now with some of the stuff that is going on in the world. So Brian, since we're on you, you guys work with, you know, like police, first responder training and stuff like that. And obviously police, you know, violence and stuff has been in the news a lot recently. So I guess talk to me a little bit more about how you kind of see the work that you guys are doing positioned to kind of move that conversation forward.
Yeah, it's like, you know, this year, most businesses just have to deal with COVID. We have to deal with COVID and recent law enforcement incidents, which it makes things extra uncertain. But, you know, our philosophy here is that as a police officer, you are equipped with everything on your duty belt. So all the different tools, your handgun, your taser, the OC spray, commonly known as pepper spray, handcuffs, anything else that your department may issue to you as a police officer. But we believe, and we also work with plenty of police officers who believe, that the most effective tool that you have is up here. It's your ability to communicate, to empathize with subjects, to properly de-escalate and talk down a situation before you have to ever use force. And you know, we're not also going to be on the other end where we're going to say you're never going to have to use force. But you know, the role that SurviVR plays here is being a supplementary training solution to police departments that just don't have the proper access to regular and also highly immersive and realistic training methods. So especially because of COVID, a lot of in-person training methods, which happen to be the majority of law enforcement training methods, are suddenly unavailable. It's like, it's a safety concern. They lose access to all these in-person trainings, whether it's classrooms or it's live acting, where you're actually bringing together actors and acting out different scenarios. And so we have customers that are saying, well, the only way we can possibly train in these complex scenarios now is with SurviVR. It's the most realistic police training simulator on the market, and it's the only option we got. And so that's really the way we're filling it in here, is we believe that there are many incidents involving law enforcement in the past that could have been avoided by better training. And so if only through basic training as a police officer, you can only cover so many different scenarios. But keep in mind, especially in today's world, police officers, we expect them to be 100% prepared and correct for every single situation they could possibly come across. Like, basic training cannot possibly cover all of those different scenarios, and that's what we're here for. Even within our traffic stop scenario or any other scenario we have, emotionally disturbed individuals, suicidal individuals, active shooters, we've designed these scenarios to be completely customizable. So you can replay the same traffic stop scenario over and over again, but have 1,000 different outcomes. So that's to make it as realistic as possible. You're going into the scenario, but you don't actually know what's going to happen. And so that's the way we're filling it in, just more accessible, but also highly realistic, high pressure training.
Yeah, and I guess just real quick, like, so I put on one of your headsets, what am I going to see?
It's going to look like you're actually in the scenario. So for example, domestic violence, you're going to be walking up to an apartment where a husband and wife may be fighting. That's a domestic violence call. You can be called to a local high school where there is a current active shooter. You could be called to a situation where there is a college student that's threatening to jump out of her dorm window. And you know, there are a lot of scenarios like that where you most likely don't have to use force at all. Like all you have to do is figure out how to use your communication skills and figure out how to talk down the subject and convince them to come off the ledge, sit down in bed, and let's just talk. How can I help you today? That's all it really is. So again, you put on the headset, it looks like you're actually there, no matter which scenario you choose to practice in. And at this point, we have probably over 25 or 30 different ones, and each of which can end in essentially an infinite amount of ways. So it looks like you're really there. Whatever training scenario you feel like you're just not the sharpest with, or you haven't had enough exposure. This could be a situation where a sergeant is walking down the hallway with a rookie one day, and she's like, hey man, you really sucked on that traffic stop back there. Let's run through some virtual reality. Let's get you up to speed. Let's run through some scenarios and get you sharp so you're confident. Next time you're less likely to make mistakes. That's what we're here for.
Nice. Sorry if you guys can hear my dogs barking in the background right now. So Richard, I told you we'd come back to you. You guys, like, obviously schools are starting to reopen, some virtually, some in person. So I guess there's been like a lot of talk about the merits of in-person education as opposed to doing it online. So I guess with your technology, and especially with working with kids on the spectrum, how does that kind of fit into kind of this new virtual hybrid model of learning that we have going on right now?
It's difficult. Just to be really, really clear, there's no easy solution here. I mean, in an ideal world, in-person learning is more effective, and especially for kids with special needs, whether it's autism or almost anything else. But what we've seen is we can really, for our existing customers, the kids who are familiar with our robots and things like that, the avatars are a really great supplement, and they fill in the gaps. And this is something that had been on the back burner for kind of a while, and something I'd wanted to do, but I didn't really have a reason to prioritize it. And now it's the absolute highest priority, period. So we have amazing evidence around how well our robots work in person. We have some evidence now about how they work in remote facilitation, like basically on a Zoom call, on a Google Hangout, whatever the schools are using, with the teacher still running, but there. And we're starting to look at how it works, first for kids who are already familiar with the program, and then kids who have never seen the robots before, and looking at how well we can help them. At the end of the day, our program it's a bunch of like gold standard evidence-based practices, some of which are decades and decades old. And what we've done is we've taken as many of them as are reasonable to cram into our program, depending on the lesson type, and deliver them through a robot. And so now looking at delivering it through a virtual character, we're hoping it should be helpful. The reality is with autism, that a lot of these kids have so much difficulty engaging with people that we're not looking at how do we compare to our own robots. And we are looking at that, but in terms of kind of the, what we're looking at is how do we compare with this program to virtual human-to-human interaction, right? So where there you're seeing engagement levels in the 2 to 5% for human-to-human. So if we're at 30 or 40%, we're multiples better. And kids learn a lot more when they're engaged. With our robots, we're at basically 90% engagement, sometimes higher, compared again to that like 2 to 5% with the traditional human-to-human. And so that's why I think we see such amazing results with so many kids. I think and autism isn't one thing, right? So you've got kind of this spectrum of kids who need a tremendous amount of support, who are nonverbal, non-communicative, and need just a lot of support. And so we're really also trying to look at and break down, how do we serve those kids? Can we serve those kids remotely? The kids who are higher functioning or verbal, they need some help with social skills and conversational dynamics and those types of things. I'm pretty sure this will work really well for them. And so we're we're always looking at our data, and we're fortunate because of the distribution and size of the kind of overall population of kids we work with. We actually generate, during at least a normal school year, more lesson data in a week than the largest autism studies in history have ever generated. So we have a lot of data to work with, and what we care about is, the impact of what we do. And so that's kind of the lens that guides everything we're thinking about right now. And then on the to the chaos when it comes to schools that we're all seeing on the news constantly, our customers, the people we're hoping to sell to, things like that, none of them really know what they're doing right now. And so all we can do is do our best to be supportive, provide them resources. And, over the summer, we filmed a lot of our lessons with the robot and just made them available to anyone, not just our customers, for free. And we're continuing to do that.
Nice.
Hey, you know what? I want to say something here, Richard. So in March, my wife and I became teachers and parents, as all parents did, teachers and principals, right? I was more the principal, she was the teacher. I don't think either one of us did a good job at that, to be honest with you. And so I see some extended use cases here for your product. So
yeah, and we're trying to figure that out. We're trying right now to think through a whole new, basically, lesson generation platform that we can put out, like web-based, basically, and make it possible for any teacher, any parent to really generate lessons and lesson plans. And so that's kind of an in-process thing we're thinking about and trying to figure out how do we do that in a way that it's accessible to anyone who even has, an inkling of a sense of what a class should look like or what a lesson plan should look like.
Cool.
Yeah, I taught for 3 years in Mesquite, English and journalism. I am not envying the job of my former coworkers right now.
Yeah.
Well, Dennis, while we're talking here, obviously the economy is a little crazy right now. It's gone up and down a little bit. So you guys kind of work in a slightly different sphere there with what you guys do. So I guess kind of with everything that's going on, I guess talk to me kind of about how you see your technology placed for what everyone kind of calls the new normal, so to speak.
Yeah, I think even prior to this, we were seeing traction. We had already established market fit. We had already exceeded 100,000 users at that point, and we had a handful of corporate partners that were on board. But we seem to have this sort of linear and inverse relationship with the market. So when the market's doing good, then Zirtue is doing good. But when it's doing bad, Zirtue is doing great. Interesting sort of relationship there. And I think fintechs in general are really critical to sort of helping us get out of this, however we come out on the other side of this. And I kind of view fintechs as sort of the last mile user experience when it comes to financial services and banking, because banks can't provide the user experience that fintechs do. They can't innovate as fast as fintechs do, which is why there's a lot of partnerships going on between banks and fintechs. I kind of look at it like, companies like Uber and Lyft would not exist if taxi services were not so horrible, right? And so because you have a lot of people out there that are either unbanked or underbanked, that don't have access to banking products or loans or things that a lot of folks have access to, so they're having to turn to things like 30% credit cards or 400% payday loans and things like that really don't help the person, don't help the community. And so if Zirtue can sort of be an alternative to that, a more financial friendly option, right? And if our corporate partners can get on board with that, and especially if you have folks that are 30, 60, 90 days past due, so you have all these aging accounts, which means they're telling you that, look, Yes, I know I can pay you via credit card or my bank account. I don't have enough in my bank account, don't have enough in my credit card, but I do have a friend or family member that's willing to loan me money, and Zirtue has a platform to send you those payments directly instead of it coming to me. And so that's our message. That's kind of what we're selling. And you know, if you look at the fact that according to the Federal Reserve Bank, friends and family in the US lend and borrow almost $200 billion a year with each other. So that tells us a couple of things. A, you know, people help each other in times of need, okay, including during the pandemic. But it also says that Zirtue is not a platform trying to convince people they should be lending and borrowing money with each other. Clearly, they're already doing that. It's just that up until now, they haven't had a platform or an infrastructure to formalize that process with a digital promissory note, payment schedule, because before you can make a loan request on Zirtue, you have to first link your bank account to your Zirtue profile, and you agree that Zirtue is going to draft your account every month to repay that loan. Vastly different than what you get with a Venmo or PayPal or Zelle. You can send those people money through those peer-to-peer payment apps and hope and pray you get your money back, which is what I used to do, or you can use Zirtue. And so our value proposition, not just to our users, but also to our corporate partners who have aging accounts receivables, is fairly simple and straightforward. And I think it's our patent pending technology that's really going to help us scale this thing sooner rather than later. So we feel pretty bullish about it all. So.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of answered my other question, because my mom always told me not to mix like relationships with money. It was a bad idea, but
we don't recommend it. In fact, you know, we tell people it's a bad idea to loan people money, but if you're going to do it, use Zirtue. So
it's a good way to say it.
Well,
yes.
I mean, last but not least, Courtney and Ty down here. I don't want to name names, but obviously Dallas has been in the news with some salon-related issues. So, you know, obviously you guys work in an industry that is very like in-person, lots of contact. So talk to me kind of about like how you guys have kind of pivoted and, you know, how you kind of see the future of the industry and where you guys are placed in that.
Yeah. Well, you know, the beautiful thing about technology is that immediately it gives you a platform to go from like one-to-one engagement to one-to-many, right? So Ty mentioned, you know, we started to ask questions of our users during the stay-at-home mandates, like how can we be the most helpful to you? Because no one can go into a salon, no one can go into a barbershop to actually see clients. So how can we be beneficial to you still in that relationship? And they came back and said, hey, we're hearing about this thing called the PPP and the EIDL, and what the heck is that? And how can you help me get money in my bank account so I can get food on the table to feed my family? So if I don't have my hands in someone's head, all my income has stopped. And so what we did was actually end up becoming like a communication center of sorts. We created more than 100 pieces of business resources that allow you to still grow and manage your business from behind the chair, right? Like all the non-sexy stuff, we call it. And I'm very happy to say that our team helped more than 125 stylists who had originally been denied for PPP actually get approved for that. And we could not have done that without technology. Thank you. And even past that, we said, okay, so if everyone's at home, like, and if this ever happens again, and when is this ever going to end? Like, what is definition of a new normal? We said, let's take a look at our roadmap. And we had some things planned for later on this calendar year, but we decided to accelerate some of those things that help to transition portions of a stylist or salon and barbershop owner's business online, right? So now when you go to the ShearShare app, you don't just put in where do you want to work and be able to find sanitized, safe, professional space to work by the day at a price that fits your budget. But you can also get access to our virtual beauty supply store, right? So overnight, all of a sudden, ShearShare became this brand new distribution channel for brands such as, you know, L'Oreal of the world, or like the independent brands. And so everything that we do either helps the independent stylist make more money or save more money. And at the same time, we're doing our darndest to make sure that we're keeping our small businesses open across now 625 cities.
Yeah, and we truly believe that, like all of us on this panel who have been congratulated and win with our wins, we truly believe that the platform is what the user trusts. We know that they can always trust anyone that's on the platform that's using it, but at the end of the day, they're going to trust the people that have built the platform. So that's where we want to get our trust and our integrity from our users. And if we're not listening to them, then that's what we're failing them. So we want to make sure that when you're building a platform, you're building building it for the user to understand that you are really looking for them to give you feedback and to let you know how well you're doing so that you can continue to grow your business and just really service them.
Yeah, that trust factor is huge. Like we're even now about to release them out a couple of weeks because we're actually going through the inaugural Google for Startups Accelerator for Black Founders, which is all about machine learning and AI. So hey, Brian, thank you. We'll be having lots of conversations about all things deep tech here for the rest of our lives. We love it. But really, like the next step for us is to, when you come onto the ShearShare platform, you can rent space to work by the day. But then also now we're introducing to the market for the very first time, being able to provide professional liability insurance that you can purchase by the day. And for our industry, we've never had that. And so instead of having to, again, pay for resources that you're not using, because the average stylist usually works between 3 and 4 days a week, but they're having to pay for space that's just lying dormant. And so our goal is to always help them maximize their earnings potential. And they look at us, they call us every day, they thank us every day, they text into our customer support line and they say, thank goodness I'm talking to someone who's from the industry. Like, you guys are not two random engineers. I can look at you and I can see myself in you. And so that makes me trust the brand even that much more.
And outside of women, we know that money helps run this world. And so we want to definitely be price sensitive to those people who are using the platform, because we know that they're price sensitive. So we want to make sure we give them diversity and array of prices that range anywhere from the smallest amount to the largest amount, because we know that at the end of the day, they want to make sure that they're giving their customers a great experience of an ambiance on a platform that really trusts them.
Yeah, and we are kind of running low on time, so I want to make sure we have time for Q&A. But kind of one of my last questions was about, you know, getting accepted into Google for Startups for Black Founders. Obviously, we were talking about kind of current issues and racial equity, diversity, Black Lives Matter. All of that is kind of forefront of people's mind right now. So, just kind of last question. What is kind of, how do you see diversity and equity kind of in the tech and startup scene? What's working and what needs to be done better?
Yeah. Oh, that's, how much time do we have, Kevin? And you're right.
I wanted to kick it over to Dennis as well. So I guess about 5 minutes here.
Okay, great. No,
yeah, go ahead, Courtney and Ty. You guys go.
Yeah, no, you're right. All right, thanks, Dennis. No, you're right, Kevin. It is at the forefront of everyone's minds, right? For founders that look like us and identify with us, it's on our minds all the time. I don't think I ever leave my home and I'm not reminded that I am a Black female in America. That's regardless of the startup space, right? Like just me leaving my house. There's always something that happens on any given day, and Ty and I will either laugh or joke about it at the end of the night,
or be mad,
or be upset, and not being able to change things faster. But yeah, that is the reality that we live in. I remember the very first investor meeting we had in person was out in the Valley. And so Ty and I are super excited, right? We're walking into the room. We've had all this phenomenal training from our time during the YC Fellow Program and 500 Startups, Batch 19. And so we sit down, we pop open our computer, and the very first thing that the investor says to us is a comment about our race. And I'm just like, from where do you go from there? Like, do you close your computer and walk out, or do you say, let's just chalk it up to practice? And so, being that we're from the South, you know, it's not something that we were not used to. So we just continued on and took it as a learning lesson. But that's something that happens more frequently than you would even care to imagine. I know we're doing our part in making sure that founders who look like us, people who are coming after us, the next generation, this rising generation, have a model to point to and say, you know what, I heard about, you know, Mark Zuckerberg, but now I know Dennis Cail, now I know Dr. Ty, now I know Courtney Caldwell. And so the more that we can be front and center, making sure that, you know, our voices are heard, we're taking up spaces in rooms, and we're showing people that you can take different loves, like beauty. If you love makeup and you love tech, we created ShearShare. I mean, like, who would have thunk it, right? And so again, just being that model of hope for this rising generation.
And so to end that, I would like to say this is a people issue, this is a human issue, but at the end of the day, this is a race issue, and we can change this if we all put forth the effort.
Yeah. Dennis, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, well, yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, Courtney and Ty were spot on. I think at the end of the day, we need more Black founders. We need more, and let me be more specific, we need more funded Black founders, because those founders need the same resources as their white, Asian, other counterparts, right? Because what we do know and I wrote an entire article on this that was featured in VentureBeat and other places. But what we do know is that one of the biggest transfers of wealth that happens is if and when someone starts a company, has an exit, and they have that liquidity moment, right? And so if less than 1% of the venture capital dollars are going toward African Americans, when and where is that opportunity to have that liquidity moment, right? And so that's an institutional issue. And to be honest with you, it's a VC issue. They have to be more intentional about where they're putting those dollars, but it's also the institutions that fund those VCs that aren't putting mandates in place to say a percentage of your invested dollars will go into Black, brown, et cetera people. That's not in place today, okay? And so if it is, I certainly don't know about it. Would love to know about it, as I'm sure Courtney would.
We don't know.
So, you know, but the point is that we have solved bigger problems than this, and it's interesting that we haven't solved this sort of institutional inequity problem, because there's so many smart people out there running these institutions and running these venture capital funds. And by the way, I do give kudos and props to the VC firms who have stepped up and made commitments and pledges and things like that. I want to make sure, as does every other Black founder out there, with the capabilities, the talent, the intellectual, everything else that their white counterparts and other people have. And I mean, we all have the ability to execute. I mean, ShearShare, Zirtue are living proof of that. So it's not a lack of ability to execute on something. It is really just a lack of access to the same resources and capital as everyone else has access to. And so we just have to be real intentional at starting at the institutional level on down in terms of where those dollars go, and make sure that it's fair and equitable. So,
well said. Well said.
Y'all are all innovators, so hopefully we can figure this problem out, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
I do want to get to Q&A since we're running low on time. We actually didn't have as many questions as I thought. So let's see. The first one we got here is, and I'll just kind of go around the horn with this one. How do you guys know who to pitch your visions to when you're going and looking to secure funding? And I guess we'll just kind of go from like we did at the start. Dennis, if you want to start us off here, how do you know who to pitch to? Who are you looking for when you're going out to secure funding?
First and foremost, you want to look for people that have experience investing in your space. So if you're going to find a fintech investor, make sure they are investing in your stage as well. Series A, wherever you are, find the right investor. Don't go talk to a healthcare investor if you're successful. So get a list of folks, use Crunchbase. Crunchbase is a good source to use and see what other comparable companies have investors invested in, and how do I reach out to them and start making those contacts. And I'm getting an echo here, by the way, too.
I heard the echo too, Dennis. I thought it was Richard's robot. I thought it was Richard's robot playing tricks on you.
Oh, okay. All right.
Richard, do you want to take that question as well?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Am I audible?
Sure.
Okay. Am I audible?
All right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So in terms of like how to pitch, early for us, it was kind of pitching to anyone who would listen, to be honest. And you know, beyond the kind of friends and family round, stuff like that. We identified, you know, some VCs, private equity, seeds, angels, who at least were open and interested in education. At the time we started RoboKind, there were kind of like 2 or 3 categories that no one seemed to want to invest in at the time. It was hardware, it was education, and it was just, you know, products that had long sales cycles. So we were all 3 of those, and so there was a lot of you know, going out to California and pounding the pavement on Sand Hill Road, and going to New York and Boston and talking to anyone that would take a meeting with us. And, you know, we managed to raise some early money from some angels and some small groups and things like that. But you know, now we're at a point where, one, we've existed long enough, I guess, to show we can continue to exist. So you know, we're almost, I guess next year we'll be 10 years old. But you know, it also, with the complexity of our product, it took raising a lot of money before we really had anything to sell. I mean, it was 4.5, 5 years of R&D before we released formal product, and we were basically selling prototype robots to universities in the interim to generate some revenue. But you know, now at least we've been able to identify, and I think some of it is it's just gotten easier in general in the last several years, but identified groups, you know, venture funds, private equity, family offices who are actually interested in education and hardware, and both of those have gotten much less scary for people, because I think you know, the pure software play, at least in certain areas, people realize that yes, you could potentially throw down a $50,000 check, and you know, 1 in 1,000 would return something huge and pay it all back. But there also wasn't a huge kind of barrier to entry with certain elements of that. And now I'm starting to see, at least in the way people are thinking, with some of the things we're doing, both with respect to the education market and all the bureaucracy that comes with it, as well as the hardware, that since we've gotten over that wall, both in building the robots, but honestly, more importantly, getting schools who are willing to buy from us and talk to us, that you know, we've kind of proven at this point that we can sell and that we can deal with it, and that people who want to come and do something similar to what we're doing have a huge barrier to entry that is not easy to overcome. And so I still don't know who the right people to talk to are, but occasionally I find them, because I talk to, you know, in normal years, thousands and thousands of people a year. So, and I realized both Dennis and Courtney, sometime last year at separate events, I watched y'all pitch, and I was very excited to see y'all here today. So
Thank you.
Just say that.
And
Yeah.
by the way, Courtney and Ty, it sounds like you guys are getting into InsurTech with your other products, so you can expand your investor option.
Yeah.
There.
Right.
That's right.
And honestly, Dennis, I wish we had known you several years ago, because your advice would have saved us hundreds of investor meetings.
Yeah.
We were very much like Richard. We were like, do you want to hear about what we're building? We want to talk to you about it. And so we literally had over 100 meetings before we got to our very first yes. But even before thinking about investors, we had no idea about the startup world.
No.
Like, we didn't know there were people out there called angels and VC. What is that? They're going to give me money to go build my dream? Oh, I didn't know this world even existed. And so we just did what we knew to do. And so the very beginning of ShearShare, when we were building out our MVP, that we literally drew on a Chipotle napkin, and we still have that napkin today.
And we keep marketing Chipotle.
I know. We can say Chipotle. I'm waiting for a sponsor or influencer gig with Chipotle.
You need to get that. Yes.
We do that. No, but so even back in the early days, we just bootstrapped ShearShare, right? And so one day Ty said, hey, I think this is something that people call a startup. My husband reads like voraciously. And he said, call that one lady that you met when you were working at Oracle, flying back and forth to Redwood City, who you met on LinkedIn and had a random coffee with. And she mentioned that word, remember? And I was like, oh, yeah. And so her name is TD Lowe of Fortify Ventures. And she's been there every step of the way for us, helping to do warm intros to investors. And by the way, this is a gal who like lives in the bubble of Silicon Valley and beyond. Like, she literally cannot walk from her car to the grocery store without being pitched. So this was like the perfect person to talk to about our idea. And so she's been there every step of the way with us when it comes to hiring engineers, because again, 2 non-technical co-founders here building a tech company for the very first time together, and who to talk to, who would be the right person. I would say that if you can figure out if it's an investor who bets on the jockey and not the horse, I think you're in a much better place. And the only way we got to figure that out was talking to a lot of other founders who had talked to other investors before. There are a lot of back channel conversations that happen, just like with the investors and the VCs out there. Same thing on the founder side. There are a lot of back channel conversations, especially now around the virtual water coolers, where people will tell you, oh yeah, that was a great meeting because they asked these types of questions, or no, that's not a person that I want to help make rich down the line. And so it's really interesting to have those kind of conversations as early on as possible.
I think that we sometimes create complexity when we think about, looking for an investor, whether it be an angel, whether it be a VC. We got to realize that we're only 1 to 3 degrees away from just someone who has money. It could be someone in our back pocket, it could be someone in our mental Rolodex, our physical Rolodex, and we had to really use that idea. Okay, who do we know? Just like reaching out to TD Lowe. I'm very relational. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So one of the things that I've always done is I've always reached out to relationships because I know someone knows someone. And being a stylist, being a barber who's cut several celebrities but don't really dabble in that world, I still have connections and relationships with those people, and I can use those relationships because even though they may be celebrities to others, they're just direct one-on-one relationships of regular people that I know. And I never thought about using them like that, because as an entrepreneur, you never really want to utilize other people's money until you really, really needed it. And until I got into the tech game and being a CEO, I realized, I said, you know what, people have money to really offset and spend and give away and write off. And why not use those relationships or those people, those VCs, those angels, and not only expose them, but diversify their portfolio as well. So definitely, I would tell people to utilize your relationships and the portfolio of people that you already know.
I would just add to that. For lastly, I would say if you are, especially in this city of Dallas, like there's so many different university programs that want to support local entrepreneurs, right? So we went where we went to UT Dallas, which is where I got my MBA. We just asked questions like, hey, what's going on? How can you guys help? And Brian Chambers at the time was there working at the Blackstone Launchpad. And again, that one conversation happens to go on for another conversation, for another conversation, and then here we are.
Networking. So I'll say 2 quick things, and I'll let Brian chime in here. And that is, Courtney and Ty, you guys have the one superpower that all entrepreneurs have to have, and that's hustle, right? And so and you've taken that to a whole nother level. But I do agree with you in terms of your relationships. So with Zirtue, every dollar we've raised on that 1.5 million on that sort of pre-seed round has come from Dallas, has come right here in Texas. Okay?
Wow.
So we didn't even have to go to the Valley. So there's a whole story to be told there about Dallas stepping up and supporting entrepreneurship. But just to add to that, over 50% of those investors are African American, including Jalen Smith, who invested in Zirtue and ShearShare. So so we're not just out here saying, hey, you should invest more than 1% in African American companies or founders, but we're also investing in ourselves. So just wanted to highlight that. And sorry, Brian, didn't want to take up too much time.
Very good. Take it away, Brian.
You want to finish this out here?
Yeah, everyone's basically answered the question and beyond already, but like just a personal pragmatic approach. This will take time, especially if you are new to fundraising, you've never done it before. Just like you would create an ideal customer profile, you may want to consider creating an ideal investor profile. Different basic criteria, whether it's the stage, it's the industry, the region as well. So investors in Texas can be different than investors in California or New York, for example. Typical check size, do they have a follow-on strategy? And usually over time, the more you have these different investor meetings, sometimes like we heard earlier, 100 plus, you kind of figure out which ones tend to be a waste of your time. And that's how you just narrow down the ideal profile. And so usually what we do is if we get a referral or someone reaches out, I basically just spend a few minutes. I'll just look up their Crunchbase profile. I'll look up the website, try to figure out what their unique thesis is. And if off the bat, if I just don't, again, this is after many investor meetings. It's like if I don't really get a good feeling from this, I might not really entertain the meeting, honestly. But again, it takes experience. Sometimes I think it also helps if you find people who have been personally impacted by your problem. Sometimes you'll find funds that cater to a very specific need. Like there are funds out there that cater to government startups or police startups, which is great for us. But even if you're earlier than the institutional stage, if you're looking for angels or friends and family, easy example is if your startup cures cancer, find someone who's lost a loved one to cancer. And that's not to say that we want to exploit the moment and other people who have suffered through the same problem they're trying to solve, but there are people out there who truly believe in the problem they're solving, and it's your job as the founder or CEO to find them. Also understand other criteria, like what's the difference between an angel versus a fund versus a family office. They have different processes, they have different theses, different criteria that you look at. So I would say just put on a piece of paper all the criteria you think your ideal investors would have, and the more meetings you have over time, start to narrow that down, and eventually you'll start to get a really refined sense of which meetings tend to have a better chance, at least, of ROI.
Yeah. Good answer,
Right.
Brian. You did it good.
Well, hopefully everyone tuning in got some good insights. Running a little over time here, so I'm gonna have to wrap it up. But again, thank you guys, everyone who's tuning in here today. Congratulations to our panel of Blazer winners, to all the Blazer winners, and to all the Inno on Fire honorees. If you haven't, you can learn more about all of this at ntxinno.com. Before I close everything out, one of the reasons we've been ramping up our expansion at NTX Inno lately is because we've learned that the more markets we're in, the better we can serve our local communities. So if you're a logistics company here, we can connect you with a logistics-focused VC firm in DC, Atlanta, or Chicago. Or if you're a blockchain company here, we know blockchain accelerators in Boston, Austin, and Tampa Bay. So beyond telling great stories and hosting events like this, we're also in the business of making connections. So please always feel free to reach out to us if there's anyone local or in one of our other markets that you'd like to meet or learn more about, and we'll do our best to make that connection. And like any growth company, we rely on user feedback to get better. So if there's anything that you want to see more of or less of from NTX Inno, please let us know. Lastly, big thank you to our amazing founding partners, BDO, Accenture, the University of Texas, Dallas, and Thomson Reuters. And thank you to our supporting partner, Amica. Please check them out and check out all the ways that they are supporting our local community. Again, thank you to everyone tuning in, and congrats to all our honorees and Blazer winners. Y'all have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Kevin. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.